using Java naming convention, right? So the name must contain, it must not contain any white spaces, right? So there must not be a gap between any two keywords, because those will be treated both separate, right? And the name should not start with the special characters. Special characters such as ampersand, dollar or underscore. It must not be starting with it, right? So let's go with first one, naming conventions to be applied on classes. So this is an example what I've created, that while writing a class, you can see here the class name right now here is as student, right? If I write S as small in student, this will be treated as a package. Instead, the naming convention says that it should be with an uppercase letter, right? So S here must be an uppercase letter. I cannot write entire class name all in uppercase. That will be treated as constant, right? It should be a noun. Use a proper word while defining a class, because if you're having this as your main class, you will be saving your file name with the same name as of your class name, right? So the main class will be your file name. So instead of having some another keywords, use proper nouns for the students, right? Use appropriate words instead of acronyms. Do not go for any abbreviations or such kind of words, because those will be treated mostly as constants, right? So these are some of the naming conventions. These naming conventions might be included in your you can say lab assessment. So you note down somewhere or take a screenshot of this. Now let's go for an interface, right? Interface is nothing but a blueprint of a class with some different functionality. We'll talk that later in module 2, right? Just for naming convention, what I've taken here is as this keyword instead of interface, instead of class, we have taken here as interface, and same procedure as of classes, right? So while defining an interface, you can have S capital for writing a interface name. Then we have for methods. This is very important, because sometimes what happens in method, we have multiple words, right? So it should be starting always in lowercase, right? You can see here, this is my class and these are my two methods. So if I'm taking one single word, all must start in lower cases. You can see here department all is in lowercase, right? Now it should be a verb, that's okay. It's the name that contains, if the name that contains multiple words start with a lowercase followed by an uppercase letter, right? So here I have taken for multiple words. Now here I am having two words. I cannot have a space in between. I can take underscore as a special character, right? But if I do not want to mention that underscore, I can use in this naming conventions, right? So this is my first word as college and second word as name. So N, my second word, here onwards, if I'm having multiple words, that is two or more words, each letter from this word first must be always capital. This is a good habit of writing your program, right? And the first word, first letter will be always in lowercase, right? Then about variables. This is a very important part, because moreover in every program we go for the variables, right? So the first rule for writing a variable is that you must be writing it in the lowercase, right? It should not start with a lowercase. So taking these characters as special characters as ampersand, dollar sign and underscore, right? And if the name has multiple words, right? You can see here, this is a single word as ID. So if I'm going for student ID, I'll be taking this as, and if I'm going for first name, you can see there are two words, right? A student might have his first name and his last name, right? So in that sense, if I'm having two different words for a single variable, how I need to write it as first words, first letter will be in lowercase, first letter in second word will be in capital, that is in uppercase, right? Mostly avoid using only one character variable, as mostly we used as integer A, float B, right? Double C. Instead, try to give a specific name, because A, B, C won't recognize you, let you recognize that what kind of variable you are applying, right? Here if you see, if I create this variable and apply some value. So you can see that student class will be having an ID. So ID itself will give you an information about this class, what you are going to implement into your variables, right? So this is a good habit. Rather than writing extra line comments, the variable itself will define what is the significance of it. Then next we have package. This is a very important concept because in both cases, while using system defined packages and user defined packages, you can create your own packages also, right? So in that case, you have to follow this naming convention, because here what you're trying to do is trying to deal with the compiler. You're telling the compiler that this is my external package and I need it to import it in the external program. So you can see here, this is our normal program as public class student, right? So this is a normal procedure of defining a class. Now, if I want some another data to be imported into my class student, what I do is I define a package which is outside the class. So this will be my hierarchy of my directory, as I'm having a com name folder dot wce dot it department. So this is an inherited hierarchy. So com directory will have wc directory, wc directory will have it department directory. If not, this will be a single file. These two will be folders, right? So while writing package, it should be always in the lowercase only. You cannot define it in uppercase nor in camel case, right? So the way you write in normal lower cases is treated as packages. Otherwise, you will be having an error while compiling this program that package naming conventions are not defined, right? So at this, because this will be dealing with your compiler, so compiler has to be you can say treated what it understands. So if you are having multiple directories, those will be separated by these dots, right? You note down these points. And lastly, I think we have constants. So constants, I'll tell you, constants must be always in the uppercase, right? It cannot be in lowercase, because if you write it in lowercase, either it will be treated as package if you mention this keyword as package, or it will be treated as variable, right? So to differentiate between package, variable, and constant, you need to define it in upper cases, right? And if there are multiple words while defining a constant, such as if you want to have first name, right? I've taken as variable. In methods, what we did is first name F was in lowercase, N was in uppercase, right? So you can use underscore in between these two words. If there are multiple words, you can use it, right? So this naming convention is also being followed by the Java compiler. Suppose in multi-threading, you're having a point as the priority of processes to be executed. So you can define max priority and min priority. By default, it will be normal priority. If you want to provide a thread or a process to maximum priority or to lower priority, you can give these options. So you can have max in capital MAX underscore priority, right? So this will be a constant, a single constant word with multiple words. Okay, so this is for constants.